Okay, so this is chapter 13, question 13 of the homeostasis and dynamic equilibrium packet that's due in January. If we take a look at the question, it says the diagram below represents one metabolic activity of a human, okay, which shows which row in the table under it correctly represents the letters A and B in the diagram. So we're looking for A and B. A is a metabolic activity, so some kind of metabolic activity. And remember what metabolism is. It can be catabolism where you're breaking it down. It could be anabolism where you're building it up. You're starting with a protein. How do I know I'm starting with it? Because it's on the left-hand side of the arrow. And then you have 4 B's on the left. Excuse me, on the right. So on the left you have protein. That's what you're starting with, and you're ending up with 4 B's. B, 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 B. So which row represents the correct, some possible answer of what A could be and what B could be if you're starting with a protein? So let's start first with this idea that it might be respiration. Could it be respiration? Respiration, and of course the product would be oxygen. Now, first of all, I guess there's a couple questions. In respiration, when you breathe, do you start with a protein? Do you start with a protein when you breathe? No, I don't think so. And do you end with 4 oxygen molecules? No, I don't think so. So if you think about what respiration is, if you think about the fact that respiration, what you know about respiration, you're respiring, you're taking in oxygen, is going in, and you know that CO2 is coming out. You know that. You breathe in and out every day. You've been told that forever and a day. So you know that respiration has nothing to do, respiration is not putting out 4 oxygen molecules. All right? That's just not reasonable. So, okay. So what else could it be? What else could this be? Well, if we look at what other things it could be, if we take a look at reproduction, could this be reproduction? Well, reproduction, what is that? You're going to start with 1 cell, and you're going to go into 2 cells, and usually, actually, reproduction is 2 cells going into 1 cell, then turns into 2 cells, and goes into many more cells. So usually reproduction, you're dealing with something a lot more complicated than just a single protein turning into 4 different things, right? So, and certainly hormones and reproduction are related, but they wouldn't be the product of reproduction, or at least not directly. So that leaves 1 and 2 are both out. So it leaves us with 2 other options. Could it be excretion? Now, certainly we are getting 4 things out. That's possible. But excretion, if you looked up the word excretion, or I think reproduction and respiration you should know already. But if you looked up the word excretion, it means pooping. Do you poop out simple sugars? I don't think so. And certainly you don't start with protein and then poop out 4 bits of protein. That doesn't make any sense at all. So again, so it puts out 3 are gone. 1, 2, and 3 have been canceled out as possibilities. Well, we already know now that the only possibility is digestion. But okay, let's think about that just to confirm that it is digestion. Does digestion make sense? Remember, you always want to check your answers. Remember to check your answers. So how are we going to check to see if we have it right? Well, does number 4, does that one make sense? If it makes sense, then let's walk through it. Let's see if it makes sense. If you're going to digest something, do you start with a whole protein and then break it up into 4 parts? And if you break it up into 4 parts, what is a protein made of? And let's see who remembers what a protein is made of. It's a polypeptide. And that polypeptide is made up of and is a polymer of amino acids. So you can imagine that there would be a protein that has 4 amino acids in it, and that during digestion, some enzyme or some part inside the digestive system of the human is going to break those bonds apart, and you're going to end up with 4 amino acids, 4 Bs, where each B is 1 amino acid. Each B is 1 amino acid. So that's where you get these 4 Bs from one protein. That makes sense to me. Does it check? Yes. That's your answer. The answer is 4. Okay. Let's take a look at this question. It says the diagram at the bottom of the page represents events involved as energy is ultimately released from food. Gee, 13 was dealing with digestion of a protein, and now we have some food molecule, could be protein, maybe sugar, whatever. The food is then within a molecule, the digestion system, something's happening. Then over here, something else is happening. It's another portion of the digestive system. Then here it is in the blood vessel, and then over here it's inside the cell, where you can see that here we have all these X's are all in a chain. Remember, what do we call those chains? What do we call those chains? I hope you're saying the word out loud right now. I hope you're saying the word polymer. All right, so you have this polymer of this biomolecule, that's this polymer, this chain of monomers, and that together, as you break it down through the digestive system, this is outside the body, obviously here, and as it moves from step to step in the digestive system until finally it's in the blood vessel, and then through either facilitated diffusion, if it's a small molecule, and if not through some kind of endocytosis, it ends up inside the cell. Remember the transport across the membrane. So we get the food inside the cell, where you can see the cell, the X is going into being turned into energy. That energy being, remember, ATP. Very important that you kind of see that process. Let's see if we can figure out which one of these 4 answers kind of makes sense compared to this diagram. I guess the question comes in, could you have made sense without me having to read this to you? Could you have made sense out of this diagram? Really, you should have. I think if you process, and this goes back to trying to put things together, right? So you have a bunch of different things, different parts of what we've learned over the last couple months. We've learned about biomolecules being polymers. We've learned about the cell. We've learned about the cell membrane. We've talked about and learned about blood vessels. And we really haven't talked a lot about the digestive system, but everybody knows, I think everyone should know. If you don't know, then I hope you're learning right now that the digestive system is the part where we break down the food. We break it down through physical means, chewing, or we break it down using an enzyme. But whatever it is, we're breaking it down. There's a lot of osmosis. There's a lot of absorbing through the intestines into the blood. There's a lot of movement and absorption from one space to another space to another space to another space to another space, all before you even come to the blood. Because remember, and I've discussed this before in a previous video, but remember that when you're going from your stomach, from this kind of stomach place here, and you're going to go into the intestines, which is another space, and then from the intestines you're going to get absorbed into the blood, and then from the blood you're going to go into the liver, and then from the liver you're going to go back into blood, and then in the blood from that blood you're going to go into the very cells. This is all kind of a cycle. This is all the blood, the digestive system. But remember, it all started with the mouth, chewing, the saliva, and etc. that you've learned in elementary school. But it's more intense and has many more details, which you'll learn either in my class or Mr. Desipeda's second half of this year. But in the digestive system, it's all about absorption. It's all about breaking things down and absorbing them into the blood to get that to get that food into this cell. So okay, now let's read the question. Which row in the table below correctly represents the X's and letters A and B in the diagram? Okay, so now we have to look for X's and A and B. Well, look at the X's, and we know that the X's were monomers as part of a polymer. They were part of a food molecule. We know that the X's are going to get broken down. You see, this is what the digestive system does, is at every step it breaks it down even more and more until finally those little monomers, they could be sugars, they could be single monosaccharides, they could be amino acids, they could be lipids, whatever they are, they got broken down into their components and they're in the blood vessel. And then now we have to go from that blood vessel into the cell. Well, let's see. Could it be nutrient? Well, that makes sense. Nutrient, food. This nutrient is a synonymous for food. And synonymous means that they have a similar meaning, right? And antibodies. Now, we talked a little bit about antibodies, mentioned it a couple times. It's an immune response. Remember, we talked about osmosis Jones, and we have these proteins that float around that look to see if they're you. They read those carbohydrates that are on the outside of they're in the membrane of the outside of your cells, and they say, hey, is this me or is it not me? One of those molecules is an antibody. Well, this nutrient antibody, that doesn't make sense at all. What does that have to do with food and digestion? Now let's see. What could A be? Well, we know A is remember, see here, A is doing something. A is taking that chain and it's making them into single pieces, so it's breaking those down. And then over here, B is taking that X and changing it into something else. So there's a chemical reaction happening here, isn't there? At this stage, at A is breaking up the polymer, breaking up the bonds that holds the polymer together, making the monomers. So you're going from A to something, A is not changing though. Notice you had A in the beginning, and you had A here at step 1, and at step 2 you still have A. Notice here in the cell, you have B from on the left side, you have B on the middle, and you have X on the left side, and you have energy on the right. So B doesn't change either. So what is it that does not change but helps a chemical reaction go forward by lowering the activation energy? Well, that's an enzyme. It's a nutrient. Here's the nutrient. You have an enzyme that's helping, a enzyme, that's one type of enzyme that's helping break down the polymer into monomers. And you have B type of enzyme that's helping change that monomer into energy. So it is certainly looks like it's going to be answer number 2, or row 2. Could it be hemoglobin and waste? Could B be waste and there be hemoglobin somehow involved in the digestive system? I hope by now you know that the very least that you know that hemoglobin is carrying oxygen in your blood and it really has nothing to do with the digestive system. Hemoglobin and hormones. Again, hormones are those proteins that circle around and are signals that they attach to cells and signal cells to either open or close or do something or release start other chemical reactions that start a chain reaction that do things. Now, there's many things they do. I'm not going to sit here and explain it to you what each and every hormone does, but there are many different hormones. Usually they're proteins that circle around throughout. Sometimes they're steroids. They circulate through your blood in every part of your body, and they can do all kinds of things depending on the tissue. But certainly hemoglobin and hormones, about the only thing they have in common is that they both circulate through your blood. The only real answer here is number 2, if you consider the possibilities of the idea of food, okay, food or nutrient, and that you need an enzyme to break it down. So I hope you get this. It's about as simple. Again, what's really hard here is looking at these X's, looking at these A's, and interpreting an answer based on what the diagram that someone's given you. Now, this is a standardized question. It could come up on ACT or SAT, and it's something a skill you have to develop. You have to be able to look at this diagram without my help, but on your own, be able to say, hey, this is a polymer. Hey, this polymer is broken down into a bunch of different things and looks like they're all the same. This polymer is broken down in a bunch of monomers. I had A in the beginning. I have A afterwards. Before, after, A still present. The polymer is no longer a polymer. It's broken up. They get transferred into a blood vessel, and they get transported into the cell. And in the cell, the X, because B is around, X is going from X to energy. So these things are doing something, and I think if you paid attention during our enzyme and catalysis labs and activities and notes, then you should know that those are A and B are both enzymes, and that you're breaking it down from a polymer, and you're finally making energy at the end. Okay, that explains those two questions. Thanks for playing the game. Email me if you have any other questions. Bye-bye.